From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
911, do you need police, fire, or medical?
Yes. No, this is, I need to talk to the police. Somebody shot my son.
Okay. He has been shot?
Yes, I am on the floor, our neighbor. 9328 South 850th Avenue.
How many minutes ago did this happen?
Just now. In front of me.
Today, the shocking story of the death of Khalid Jabara, a Lebanese-American man shot dead in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in an apparent hate crime. Police have arrested his neighbor, the same man who was jailed last year for hitting Khalid's mother with his car. We'll speak with Khalid Jabara's brother and sister. Plus, we go to North Carolina to talk to Mohammed Abu-Saha. His daughters and son-in-law were killed last year in a hauntingly similar case.
This was an execution style. This was a hate crime from a neighbor our children spoke about. They were uncomfortable with. He came to their apartment more than once, condescending, threatening, and despising and talking down to them.
Then to North Dakota, where indigenous activists are continuing to protest the proposed $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which they say would threaten to contaminate the Missouri River.
I, for one, made a commitment. They're going to have to kill me or they're going to have to lock me in jail. But I'm going to stand to protect this sacred water.
We'll speak with Dave Archambault, the chair of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, and Indigenous and Anishinaabe activist Winona LaDuke. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials have issued an unprecedented warning to pregnant women, telling them not to travel to parts of Miami-Dade County amidst dozens of confirmed cases of locally transmitted Zika virus. The virus has now been conclusively linked to microcephaly, a condition where babies born to infected mothers have abnormally small heads and other health problems. The travel advisory issued by the Center for Disease Control concerns two neighborhoods, Wynwood and Miami Beach. This is Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine.
We need federal help. We need the federal government to step up and do what's necessary to reconvene and make sure the state, the county gets the proper funding immediately so that we can use these resources to combat this virus.
Public health officials are warning the Zika virus may soon spread to parts of Louisiana and Texas. It's also spread to the U.S. territories of American Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, as well as throughout dozens of Caribbean and Latin American countries. The World Health Organization has declared Zika a global public health emergency. Meanwhile, in Key Haven, Florida, officials have sparked controversy with a proposal to release genetically modified mosquitoes in efforts to stop the potential spread of Zika. The genetically modified mosquitoes have been altered to carry a gene that causes the offspring to die as larvae. The idea is to release the male genetically modified mosquitoes into the wild so they will mate with female mosquitoes. The proposal has caused fierce opposition from local residents who fear the long-term health and environmental impacts. The proposal will appear as a non-binding referendum on the November ballot. President Obama is visiting Louisiana today, where some neighborhoods still have up to 2 feet of standing water left from the historic flooding last week. At least 13 people died and 40,000 homes were destroyed in what the Red Cross has called the worst natural disaster in the U.S. since Hurricane Sandy. Obama has faced criticism from residents and the local newspaper The Advocate for not traveling to the flood zone earlier, comparing his failure to visit the region to President George W. Bush's failure to travel to New Orleans in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Although Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards has said until now he didn't want Obama to come, as he'd rather not redirect resources to a presidential visit. Meanwhile, wildfires continue to rage across the western states of California, Washington, and Wyoming. Officials say more than 24 homes were destroyed by wildfires near Spokane on Monday, while nearly 50 homes were destroyed by a wildfire in San Luis Obispo County. Officials say the fires are worsened by the historic climate-fueled drought. In news from the campaign trail, Donald Trump is standing by his harsh immigration proposals, which include deporting 11 million undocumented immigrants and building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. Over the weekend, Trump's new campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, attempted to soften his proposal, saying his deportation plans remain, quote, to be determined, unquote. But Trump repeatedly stood by his mass deportation proposals on Monday, including during his interview with Fox News' Bill O'Reilly.
The first thing we're going to do, if and when I win, is we're going to get rid of all of the bad ones. We got gang members, we have killers, we have a lot of bad people that have to get out of this country. We're going to get them out, and the police know who they are. They're known by law enforcement who they are. We don't do anything. They go around killing people and hurting people, and they're going to be out of this country so fast your head will spin. We have existing laws that allow you to do that. As far as everybody else, we're going to go through the process.
This comes as Donald Trump has canceled a speech about his immigration policies, which was slated for Thursday. Meanwhile, Trump continued his efforts to appeal to African-American voters Monday while speaking to an overwhelmingly white crowd in Akron, Ohio.
Crime at levels that nobody's seen. You can go to war zones in countries that we're fighting, and it's safer than living in some of our inner cities. They're run by the Democrats. To the African Americans, who I employ so many people. To the Hispanics, tremendous people. What the hell do you have to lose?
In fact, FBI data shows violent crime in the United States has been declining steadily for the last 2 decades. Trump's approval rating among African Americans is between 0 and 1%. Yet Trump has said repeatedly in recent days if he's elected by 2020, he'll win 95% of the African American vote, a claim that even his running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, appears to doubt. This is Pence chuckling during an interview with Fox News' Ainley Earhart.
Donald Trump is telling the African-American community, I am the guy for you, and he says by 2020 he's going to have 95% of the African-American support. Why are you laughing?
Well, that's Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton is facing questions after a new round of emails released Monday again reveal the close ties between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, while Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State. The 725 pages of emails were released by the conservative group Judicial Watch, which obtained them through the Freedom of Information Act request earlier this year. They show Clinton's Deputy Chief of Staff, Huma Abedin, corresponding with multiple Clinton Foundation donors, including Crown Prince Salman of Bahrain, whose scholarship program committed $32 million over 5 years to the Clinton Global Initiative. He was seeking a meeting with Hillary Clinton. Another email shows Abedin corresponding with a Los Angeles-based sports executive who donated between $5 million and $10 million to the foundation. He wanted help getting a visa for a British soccer player. The visa was never granted. On Monday, Bill Clinton said he would remove himself from the board of the foundation if Hillary Clinton becomes president. This all comes as a federal judge has ordered the State Department to set a timetable for the release of 15,000 additional emails the FBI has collected during the agency's investigation into Clinton's use of a private email server. Former Secretary of State Colin Powell is pushing back on rumors he advised Clinton to set up the private email server, saying, quote, her people are trying to pin it on me, unquote. Meanwhile, on Monday night, Hillary Clinton faced protests by Palestinian rights activists outside a fundraising event at the Beverly Hills estate of billionaire Haim Saban. He has contributed millions to one of Clinton's super PACs. Many of the donations came after Clinton herself wrote a letter to Saban expressing her alarm over the growing boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. BDS is an international campaign to pressure Israel to comply with international law and respect Palestinian rights. In the July 2, 2015 letter, Hillary Clinton wrote, quote, I know you agree we need to make countering BDS a priority. I am seeking your advice on how we can work together, unquote. This comes as Israel has carried out up to 50 airstrikes in the Israeli-occupied Gaza Strip. Palestinian officials say at least 4 people have been wounded in the airstrikes, including a 17-year-old boy. Officials also say a water tower was damaged. Israel says the strikes were a retaliation for a rocket launched into Israel over the weekend. Former Fox News host Andrea Tantaros has filed a lawsuit alleging top Fox News executives punished her after she reported being sexually harassed by former Fox News chair Roger Ailes. In the lawsuit, Tantaros said she was prohibited from wearing pants on air because his executives told her, quote, "Roger wants to see your legs," unquote. Tantaros also alleges she was removed from one of Fox's top-rated shows after she refused to turn around during a meeting with Roger Ailes, who told her he wanted to, quote, "get a good look at her," unquote. Tantaros says that when she told Executive Bill Shine about the harassment, he told her to, quote, "let this one go," unquote. Shine has taken over as co-president of Fox News following Ailes' resignation. The lawsuit writes, quote, "Fox News masquerades as a defender of traditional family values, but behind the scenes it operates like a sex-fueled Playboy mansion-like cult steeped in intimidation, indecency, and misogyny," unquote. Roger Ailes has been accused of sexual harassment by more than 20 women, including Fox News anchors Megyn Kelly and Gretchen Carlson. Ailes resigned in July, receiving a $40 million severance package. In Texas, a federal court has issued a nationwide injunction blocking the Obama administration's directive, saying students have the right under federal law to use the bathroom that corresponds to their gender identity. The directive, issued in May, suggests school districts could face lawsuits or loss of funding if they fail to protect transgender students from discrimination and unequal access to facilities. The injunction, issued Sunday night, comes as millions of students prepare to return to school this week. This is White House spokesperson Josh Earnest.
Our goal has been from the beginning to provide for the safety and security and dignity of students all across the country. So I guess the point is we've got a lot of confidence in the guidance that was put forward. We certainly have confidence in the legal basis for issuing that guidance.
In Afghanistan, more than 100 U.S. soldiers have been sent to the capital of Helmand province to fight the Taliban. It's believed to be the first deployment of U.S. troops to Lashkar-Gah since 2014. A July report issued by a U.S. government watchdog says the Taliban now controls more territory across Afghanistan than at any point since 2001. The U.S. war in Afghanistan is the longest war in U.S. history. In Libya, the Western-backed government suffered a no-confidence vote Monday. Members of the Libyan House of Representatives voted 61-1 against the UN-backed Government of National Accord, known as the GNA. 39 parliament members abstained from the vote. Libya currently has 3 competing governments that claim legitimacy. Earlier this month, the Pentagon began carrying out airstrikes in Libya against ISIS in what it says will be an ongoing campaign. In Mexico, teachers in the southern states of Oaxaca, Michoacán, Guerrero, and Chiapas are on strike to protest Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto's so-called education reforms, which seek to implement standardized testing across Mexico and weaken the power of teachers' unions. On Monday, which was the first day of classes across Mexico, teachers in Oaxaca City instead marched through the streets. This is Juan Garcia from Section 22, the local chapter of the teachers' union.
The school calendar that we're going to propose and which we're designing concerns the standards of work being fulfilled with the parents of families and not from the boss. It is a commitment to our students and parents of families.
In June, a deadly police attack on protesting teachers in Oaxaca left at least 9 people dead and more than 100 wounded. And U.S. Olympic gold medalist Ryan Lochte has lost 4 corporate sponsorships, including Speedo and Ralph Lauren, amidst the scandal over his decision to lie to Brazilian authorities about having been robbed. Swimmer Lochte and his teammates claimed they were robbed at gunpoint by men posing as police officers during the Olympic Games. But Brazilian authorities said they actually vandalized a gas station, the 4 Olympians, and then invented a story about having been victims of a robbery. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We turn now to look at North Dakota, where Indigenous activists are continuing to protest the proposed $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which they say would threaten to contaminate the Missouri River.
Respect our water! Respect our water! Respect our land! Respect our land! Honor our treaty! Honor our treaty! Honor our rights! Honor our rights!
1,000 Indigenous activists from dozens of different tribes across the country have traveled to the Sacred Stone Spirit Camp. The protests have so far shut down construction along parts of the pipeline. Protesters have included Deborah Whiteplume, an Oglala Lakota water rights activist.
The need to protect this water has grown way beyond Standing Rock. I'm Oglala in Northern Cheyenne. Many Red Nations are here. Many more Red Nations are coming. We put the call out for water protectors to come, land defenders to come. And the word resistance is being used. And sometimes we have a problem with the English language, deciding which word to use. But if we just listen to our spirits, we're here to protect sacred water. People will come from all along the river to protect the river that they belong to.
Dennis Banks, co-founder of the American Indian Movement, has also taken part in the protests against the Dakota Pipeline. Banks also was part of the 1973 Wounded Knee standoff.
What's happening here is equally as important because of the stand that you're ready to make. When they threaten the environment, they're threatening you. We are part mountain. We are part ocean. We are part river. We are part flower and grass and tree. All of this. We are part of all of it. So when they threaten the environment any place, they're threatening you. You have to be in that mindset like that. That's who you are. That's who we are. And our culture, our heritage, is what has made us warriors.
That was Dennis Banks. We're joined now by David Archambault, the chair of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. Chairman, thanks very much for being with us. Can you explain for us what this whole controversy is about?
There's a lot of different components that all lead up to one, and it is a pipeline that is threatening the lives of people, lives of my tribe, as well as millions down the river. It threatens the ancestral sites that are significant to our tribe, and we never had an opportunity to express our concerns. This is a corporation that is coming forward and just bulldozing through without any concern for tribes, and the things that have happened to tribal nations across this nation have been unjust and unfair, and this has come to a point where we can no longer pay the costs for this nation's well-being. We pay for economic development, we pay for national security, and we pay for energy independence. It is at our expense that this nation reaps those benefits, and all too often we share similar concerns, similar wrongdoings to us, so we are uniting and we're standing up and we're saying no more.
Can you explain what exactly the Dakota Access Pipeline is and how it ended up going through your land?
Dakota Access Pipeline is a pipeline that goes 1,200 miles, taking Bakken crude oil from the northwest side of North Dakota down to Illinois. And we were made aware of this in 2014, and our biggest concern was it crossed the Missouri River twice, once north of once in Lake Sakakawea and once north of our reservation. And right away, when we first learned of it, we said, we don't want this. We don't want it here. But it's a private pipeline from a private company out of Dallas, Texas. And so there's a big corporation, Energy Transfer Partners, out of Dallas, who are making decisions for this state and for North Dakota, for my reservation, and they have no sensitivity or no acknowledgement of what is in place. All they see is dollar signs and greed. So we are not happy with this private-based company. There are portions of this pipeline that cross federal lands, like water, and so they have to get permits, but they get easements on private property, and the private landowners who do not approve of the pipeline, there's an eminent domain taking. So the landowners where the pipeline crosses are kind of have their hands tied. But in the federal permitting process, and it's like of the 1,200 miles, 200 waterways, maybe 300 miles are on federal lands. That's what we're saying. If we can't do anything on the private lands, we're gonna ask the federal agencies to reconsider and take a look at this, because we never had the opportunity to express our concerns.
I want to go back to Deborah White Plume, an Oglala Lakota water rights activist, speaking at the Sacred Stone camp.
We're putting the call out for warriors to come here to do direct action, to stop them from boring under this water, because that's going to contaminate it. We can't stand for that. We can't let that happen. I, for one, made a commitment. They're going to have to kill me, or they're going to have to lock me in jail. But I'm going to stand to protect this sacred water. And I'm guided by spirit.
So that's Deborah White Plume, who participated in a 1973 standoff in which members of the American Indian Movement occupied Wounded Knee to demand their treaty rights. She called for focus in the action at Sacred Stone.
I understand that rage. I fought with cops before. I've been shot at by police. I've been shot by police. We got it on with the police on Pine Ridge back in the day, so I understand that rage. But when we're here together to protect sacred water, let's do it with dignity. Let's do it with training. Let's do it with unity.
So, Chairman Dave Archambault, explain what this camp is, where it is, and how many people are coming out to it, and how the state is responding.
This camp is along the Cannonball River, close to the mouth of the Missouri River. And the camp is started out in April of 2016 as a prayer camp. And the prayers have been answered. There's been power in prayer, and it opened the eyes to everybody that through prayer and unity, great things can happen. Since the demonstration started, more and more people began coming and showing overwhelming support for this, and we had to anticipate large masses of people coming. So we occupied a space just north of the Cannonball River off the Standing Rock Reservation, which is core land, and it's on a nice flat. Right now, what's going on is it's about peace, and it's about prayer, and it's about uniting. And there's a really good feeling if you were to walk through the camp. There are no guns, no violence, no drugs, no alcohol. And it kind of took a life of its own. It evolved into something very special. The state on the other side has taken action, which there's no cause for. They created a barricade just south of Mandan, right before you get into Fort Lincoln, Custer's Park. It's about 25 miles north of the camp, and this barricade creates a hardship for the members who live on Standing Rock. The state also removed its emergency assistance vehicles that we initially got to establish and accommodate large masses of people.
You were arrested there, Chairman?
Yes, I was.
I want to play Morton County, North Dakota Sheriff Kyle Kirchmeyer's comments, claims he made that there have been reports of weapons at Sacred Stone Spirit Camp, and get your response.
It's turning into a unlawful protest with some of the things that have been done and has been compromised up to this point. We have had incidents and reports of weapons, of pipe bombs, of some shots fired.
So that's the sheriff. Dave Archambault, your response.
There never was any shots fired. There never were any pipe bombs. There were never any incidents of unlawful activity taking place. When you have a large mass of people in an area, especially with social media, you have Facebook that can create rumors. And I would ask that the sheriff and the governor validate any rumors that they come across before they make haste decisions on to create a blockade or to declare a state of emergency or to remove any of their emergency assistant vehicles. I understand they have safety concerns, but you just have to be present at the camp and you'll see that it's a peaceful place and there are happy people that who share a common prayer.
Chairman, can you explain the lawsuit?
So what we're filing a lawsuit on is the destruction of our ancestral burial sites and never being given the opportunity to protect them, as well as the nationwide permitting process. Rather than permitting the project as a whole and doing a full EIS, the Corps of Engineers ask that they permit chunks and pieces of it, and they require an EA. Now, the EA is less intensive as an EIS, so they're able to kind of do unlawful things that, such as destroy our sites that are sacred to us. We don't agree with the fact, they're going to say they had consulted with us on this matter. To us, consulting doesn't mean corresponding through letter or mail, or it doesn't mean presenting us a final draft of what you're going to do. Consulting to us would mean that we need to have deliberation and share our concerns and hope that they hear us and see a reflection of our concerns in the final plan. None of that has taken place. We asked for consultation prior to any final drafts and to survey the routes to make sure that none of the sites that we cherish would be destroyed. It's not until after they finalize what they want to do, this Dallas-based company who is doing the EA for the Corps of Engineers tells us how or where they're going to go. Now they come and invite us to do surveys, and we don't think that's right. We think it's unlawful and we think it's unjust.
Dave Archambault, chair of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. When we come back, Indigenous rights activist Winona LaDuke will also join us. Stay with us. My Friends Take Courage by the Lakota Thunder. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue to look at the growing Indigenous protests against the proposed $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which they say would threaten to contaminate the Missouri River. We're joined now by Winona LaDuke, Native American activist, executive director of the group Honor the Earth. She lives and works on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. She was also the Green Party vice presidential nominee in 1996 and 2000. Winona, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you talk about why, from the White Earth Reservation where you live, you've gotten involved with this battle against the Dakota Access Pipeline?
Well, good morning first, Amy and Dave. Yeah, our reservation in northern Minnesota is the proposed site, our territory for the Sandpiper. For the past 4 years, I've been fighting the Enbridge Company. The Enbridge Company is proposing 3 new lines through our territory. One of them is the Sandpiper, and that would cross, affecting basically by the time they're done, 5 of our reservations would be affected by these pipelines, which would go by the Mississippi River and through the heart of our wild rice beds. Enbridge has been pushing for a brand new corridor because they have this old corridor. They say it's got, 6 pipelines in them, all about 50 years old, kind of falling apart pipelines. And so they want to, instead of clean up their old mess, they want to make a whole new mess. So for 4 years, we've been fighting them and telling them they cannot do that. And the courts, had ruled it in our favor, and now a full EIS is required, and the tribes are demanding that the process include them, and the tribe should have some say in it. So I was really surprised because Enbridge told us all that the only thing that they could do, it was so important to them, the only way they could get their oil to market was to run it through northern Minnesota. And then one day I wake up and they forgot all about us and they move out there to North Dakota. Seemed very disingenuous to me.
And so you
came out to North Dakota, yeah.
And talk about what you found there.
Well, what I found out in North Dakota is that, the state of North Dakota has been bending over backwards for the oil companies, although the fact is that there are now more lawsuits than active drilling rigs out there, because they were such a big push to develop all this oil in the Bakken, basically bust up the bedrock of Mother Earth, put all those chemicals in it, look the other way and pretend like things are going swimmingly out in North Dakota. So North Dakota's got this landlocked oil. They're taking a beating on it right now. There is an 85% drop in active drilling rigs in the Bakken. Fact is that they don't even have it going on out there, but they are bound and determined to get whatever oil out of there they can. And so they decided to throw this pipeline through. And, North Dakota's regulators are, I would suggest, really in bed with the oil industry. And they have looked the other way, and so they have pushed these pipelines through, really, really fast without any tribal consultation and without a full environmental impact statement. And that's what needs to happen. You need a full environmental impact statement on this. And, I say, what we say is that you should have a well-to-wheels impact. In other words, it's not just hauling the oil. It's not just endangering all those watersheds. It's not just the fact that, former editor of Scientific American, Trudy Bell, says 57% chance of a catastrophic leak. It's not even just that. It's what about all that carbon? We're sitting here and, in this world where there's been no rain in Syria for 5 years. There's catastrophic storms everywhere. And this pipeline is going to bring about 250,000 per day tons of carbon into the atmosphere. That's what this Dakota Access Pipeline is, and that's wrong. A private corporation doesn't get to destroy things. A Canadian corporation at that. Enbridge isn't even a U.S. corporation. Enbridge is a Canadian corporation, and they have no right to destroy our water, no right to compromise our future.
Can you talk a little more about Enbridge? You recently wrote that Enbridge looks a lot like Enron. Explain.
Yeah, Enbridge is not doing so well. I've been writing letters. I kind of feel like that Roger and me thing. I write letters to Al Monaco, the president of Enbridge. I say, hey, it's Winona down here on White Earth wondering about a few things. They had, a few catastrophic blow-ups last year. And then this year, first of all, June 30th, they lost this big pipeline. Enbridge is in the pipeline business, the Northern Gateway Pipeline, $7.9 billion proposal. They thought they had it with the Harper administration. That was looking pretty good up in Canada. Canada, Stephen Harper. Trudeau gets in. Every tribe along the way, every First Nation along the way, and the province of British Columbia is opposing this pipeline, which would take it to Port Kitimat, you know, really pristine area with all these fjords. Anyway, what happens is the Canadian Federal Appeals Court rules that all of the permits are void, that in fact Enbridge and the government have to go all the way back and talk to the First Nations, tribal consultation. I had it really hurt Enbridge quite a bit, $7.9 billion pipeline. You know, we got them on the ropes there in Minnesota. They're now in an EIS process, although they would have liked to kind of like skirt around that. But the citizens of Minnesota and the tribes have forced that process. And then you add this little problem, it's called the faulty pipe scandal. What happened is that in July, it was announced in National Observer, National Energy Board leak, that Enbridge and this other company called Kinder Morgan had purchased these pipes from called Canada Oil, and it's a Thailand-based company, Discount Pipes. They purchased all these pipes and valves that are faulty. And the National Energy Board of Canada, Canadian government says, emergency situation. Where are those pipes, Enbridge? Enbridge's lawyers have said they need time to disclose where exactly all those pipes are. Now I'm sitting here, and in northern Minnesota, we got 6 lines crossing through our really good ecosystem. I'm wondering if some of those pipes are there, or maybe they're over in a pile by Lake George next to my reservation. We would like a full disclosure as to where the faulty pipes are that Enbridge has. You know, look at that, and then they got a 40%, their shares are down now, 40% drop in their shares, you know, from 2 years ago. So I feel like Enbridge is not looking so good, not looking so good to their shareholders, and they got a lot of liability they're putting on us, on Americans, on Native people, and trying to force it down the throat of the Standing Rock people. And I feel like that company is not a reliable corporation.
Last month, Winona, the Labor's International Union of North America endorsed the Dakota Access Pipeline. Terry O'Sullivan, General President of LIUNA, said in a statement, quote, "The men and women of LIUNA applaud the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for its fair and thorough review of the Dakota Access Pipeline. For the highly skilled and trained men and women of LIUNA, projects like the Dakota Access are more than just pipelines. They're crucial lifelines to family-supporting jobs," they said. Labor's Local 563 business agent Corey Bryson said, quote, "We've been inundated with calls from all over the country from people wanting to work on the pipeline project. Mainline pipeline projects like Dakota Access provide excellent working opportunities for our members and tremendous wages." Your response, Winona LaDuke.
My response is that the United States has a D in infrastructure. That's why bridges collapse. That's why Flint, Michigan has a problem. That's why everything is eroding in this country. And what we need is those skilled laborers to be put to work, pipelines for people. I'm saying take those pipes that are sitting there in northern Minnesota and send them to Flint, Michigan. They need billions of dollars worth of pipe infrastructure out there. We don't need any pipes in northern Minnesota. I say that most of our Indian reservations don't have adequate infrastructure. We'd like a little help with our water and sewer systems there. I am all for organized labor, but what I want is I want pipelines, I want infrastructure for people, not for fossil fuels, not for oil companies. So I am all for that. There are plenty of people that could be put to work, and it's 5 times as many jobs doing infrastructure for communities, doing for people than one shot throw a pipe down and hope it works out for you. So I'm asking American labor to stand with us and to say we want pipelines, we want infrastructure that goes for people, that goes for communities, and not for oil companies that are going to destroy our environment and cause more climate change destruction to our planet.
Winona LaDuke, we want to thank you for being with us. Native American activist, executive director of the group Honor the Earth. She lives and works on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. When we come back, we go to Tulsa and to North Carolina. Stay with us.
As a kid, I walked a million miles. Didn't know where or how I should draw the line. As a kid, I laughed a zillion times. Sure, I believed every one of those lies. soul. Some truths are better left unknown. Never thought the city could glow in flames. I leave all become insane. Oh, 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 oh.
San Moon here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Oklahoma, funeral services were held Friday for Khalid Jabara, a Lebanese-American man police say was shot dead by his next-door neighbor in a possible hate crime. Police say Stanley Majors will be charged with first-degree murder. The August 12th killing came less than a year after Majors was arrested and jailed for hitting Jabara's mother with his car while she was jogging. At the time, the mother, Haifa Jabara, already had a restraining order against Majors after he threatened and harassed her. Majors served 8 months in jail but was then released on $60,000 bond, even though Tulsa County prosecutors called him, quote, a substantial risk to the public, unquote. The Jabara family says Majors had harassed them for years, calling them racial slurs. The Jabaras are Orthodox Christian immigrants from Lebanon, which they fled in the 80s. Victoria Jabara Williams, Khalid's sister, wrote on Facebook, "My family lived in fear of this man and his hatred for years. Yet in May, not even 1 year after he ran over our mother, and despite our repeated protests, he was released from jail with no conditions on his bond, no ankle monitor, no drug alcohol testing, nothing," unquote. Shortly before he was shot, Khalid Jabara called 911 to report his neighbor had a gun.
The old man was driving off, and I caught him, and I asked him what's going on. He said, he bruised me up. He hit me with his end of the...
Here, let me, hold on, sir. I'm going to get you over to the non-emergency line, okay, so you can tell them.
This is an emergency.
Is he already gone?
This is an emergency. So the old man left. The other person, he told me that he hit him with the gun and fired it 3 times somewhere in the house. So
somebody fired a gun into your neighbor's house?
In his own house. The old man told me when he was leaving, he said, I told him you should go.
Did you hear any gunshots?
The noise that I heard on my window was like peck, peck. It was not a knock. I don't know what it was, but it's really not me. I'm not really saying that if I heard it or not, because I didn't hear. I can never.
Do you think it was at the 9332 South 8057 where this happened?
Yes.
Okay, was this guy white, black, or Indian?
All right. So the person next door is white.
Police responded to Khalid Jabara's call, but left without speaking to Stanley Majors. Soon after Khalid was shot, his father, Muna Jabara, called 911 to report what happened.
911, do you need police, fire, or medical?
Yes. No, this is, I need to talk to the police. Somebody shot my son.
Okay. He has been shot?
Yes, I am on the floor, our neighbor. 9328 South 850 Avenue.
How many minutes ago did this happen?
Just now, in front of me.
Okay. The guy who shot the gun, was he white, black, Indian, or Hispanic?
Yeah, no, white.
How old is he, if you had to guess?
I guess next door neighbor.
How old is he, if you had to guess?
Maybe 60, 65.
What color shirt and pants is he wearing?
Well, I don't know. I can't say. I just see. He's still, my son is on the floor. I can't go because I'm afraid to shut.
Okay.
9328 South 85th.
Okay. You didn't see what color shirt and pants he was wearing?
No, ma'am. He's there. He's here in the next door neighbor. I did not go out.
Okay. Do you know what kind of gun he has?
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I heard the shots from him. I heard the shots. I'm afraid he was coming now.
Okay, how many gunshots were fired?
Three. He's on the floor, my son.
Where was he shot at? Where was he shot at?
He shot him. He shot him.
I mean, did he shoot him outside or inside the house?
I'm in there with me. Yes. Where did he shot you? Where did he shot you? Okay, let me call the ambulance.
No, I have ambulance and everyone en route to you, okay?
He shot him. He shot him.
Just stay on the phone.
That was Muna Jabara, moments after his son Khalid was shot dead in front of his home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're going now to Tulsa, where we're joined by Khalid's brother and sister, Rami Jabara and Victoria Jabara Williams. I welcome you both to Democracy Now! My condolences on the death of your brother. Victoria, can you describe the history of what took place? This didn't just happen in one moment.
No, it definitely was a progression of events, and it seemed like every time my family and I would contact either police or the authorities, as we were supposed to do, you know, over the last several years, Stanley Majors would just retaliate and stronger. And so, you know, over the last I think 4 years or so, you know, from violating 2 protective orders, obviously one of them being hitting my mom while she was walking with his car, and to the most recent incident where he killed my brother. You know, it's just been, you know, pretty traumatic over those years, especially since we did everything we were supposed to do.
Again, Rami, my condolences, all of our condolences to you and your family. When did you first meet Stanley Majors, your next-door neighbor?
I think he came around maybe in 2012. I actually don't think I've officially met him face to face. You know, we tried to avoid him, especially as my sister was saying, as the insults and remarks and racist comments began. You know, we just thought, like, we need to stay away from this particular neighbor.
What would he say?
You know, he's yelled racial slurs at us, at my mom and dad and my brother, because they all reside in my parents' house, and so they're there all the time. So dirty Arabs, dirty Lebanese, Muslims, even though my family's Orthodox Christian. You know, he's yelled racial slurs at neighbors as well. We have our family friend and you know, was mowing our lawn, and he's African American. He's yelled racial slurs at him as he was mowing our lawn, just completely unprovoked.
Can you explain what happened when you filed your first complaint against Stanley Majors?
Well, so as my sister said, it was kind of a slow progression of comments and racist remarks, and you know, my mom was like, what can we do to, you know, help, you know, protect ourselves? And we told her that, you know, she can file a protective order against him. And in I believe November 2013, that was completed. We got a protective order against him. My mom did.
I should say that during that time, he was coming on our property and, like, taking pictures of our house and of my parents. And so I think that was kind of that final, like, okay, this guy is going to come onto our property, so we need to,
making obscure phone calls, sending very strange letters to my sister, my uncle.
You had a protective order when he ran over your mother?
Correct.
Correct. And that was the second violation.
I mean, violation. So he's arrested and he's jailed, and he's not tried? He's held for 8 months and then released?
Well, so there was a first violation of protective order in March 2015. And that involved him making his usual racist remarks, I think being belligerent and drunk while we had a family gathering over Easter. So that was violation number 1. And he, you know, as most criminal defendants, he would have several hearings supposedly leading up to a trial. But he continually did not show up to his hearings, and eventually the judge issued a bench warrant for his arrest, which is common when a defendant does not show up to their required hearings. So that was violation number 1. In September 2015, that was violation number 2 when he ran over our mother, leaving her for dead in the street.
And that's when he went to jail, but he was never tried because,
he was, as with many defendants, they have the option to set bond, and after we had discussed with the district attorney, basically saying this guy cannot be out on the streets, he needs to be held without bond. And they did follow our instructions. And for 8 months, he was held without bond.
And then?
And then, in May of 2016, I'm sorry, we were checking the status of the case, as we normally do, as it is slowly leading up to a supposed trial. And we realized that on a routine hearing where a new criminal defense attorney entered his appearance on Major's behalf, there was an oral motion made to reconsider bond, and the judge granted it without our knowledge, basically without objection from the district attorney's office.
And so he was released?
He was released without any actual conditions on his release, of course, but without any resolution of the prior incidents.
And how soon after he was released did he kill Khalid?
So I think beginning of June, they had the emergency hearing where they increased the bond, and then he made bail, so June to August 12th.
And what happened? What did you understand? Were you, either of you, there on August 12th?
My brother Rami lives in Dallas, and I live in Tulsa. And so my mom called. I was at a friend's house with my daughter. She said, you know, Khalid's been shot. You have to go to the hospital. Khalid's been shot. They won't let me leave because it's a crime scene. And at that time, I don't know what information she got, but she made it seem that like he got hit in the leg and he was going to be okay. So I rushed to the hospital, and you know, obviously they told us, you know, he died. And I met my parents. My husband and I met my parents at. They were staying in a secure area next to our house while the detectives were there on Friday night. And so I met them there, and it was, you know, I think a 4 or 5 hour pursuit of Major's, and they never were able to get into his house, and Khalid never got a warrant.
Khalid had called right before Major shot him dead and said he has a gun, please come, and the police came and left?
Yeah, so we're still waiting for the police report, but it looks like my brother Khalid called twice to call the police. Once when he learned he had a gun, he said he heard some knocking on his door on a window, and he went out, and Stanley Majors' spouse, his husband, was driving away, and he said he has a gun, he hit me with the gun. And so my brother called my mom, who was not home at the time. He said, don't come home, because we learned he had a gun. And so they called 911. My brother called 911 the first time, saying he heard some knocking. I don't know. I haven't read the police report. I don't know if he called when he heard the knocking the first time, and then he called again when he learned he had a gun. But he called twice, and the police came out once. and they said that they knocked on Stanley Major's door. They couldn't go in. They couldn't do anything despite my brother's plea and explaining the story. And then the police left, and then 8 minutes later, my brother was shot.
I want to bring in another guest to this conversation as we continue to talk about the killing of Khalid Jabara in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dr. Mohammed Abu Saha is with us. His two daughters, Ghassan and Yusra, were shot dead along with his son-in-law, Dia Barakat, last year in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, by a neighbor. Ghassan was 19, Yusra 21, Dia was 23. Police initially said the killings resulted from a dispute over a parking space, but relatives of the victims described the killings as a hate crime. The suspected gunman, Craig Stephen Hicks, has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Dr. Mohammed Abu Saha joins us from Raleigh, North Carolina. As you listen to this story, it must sound horrifyingly familiar.
It does. And first of all, I would like to express condolences to the Jabara family, Victoria, Rami, and the family. Your story is almost identical to ours, and I know exactly how you feel. Khalid was one too many to lose, but we lost 3 children in seconds. The pain is forever, and our lives are torn up, and we will never be the same. It's flashbacks, it's nightmares, it's diminished energy, sad mood most of the time, and even our relationships and community activities have changed. It's horrible. And the similarities between the 2 cases are so many. Craig Hicks also harassed my children many times. Though he picked on parking for 5 years, he never threatened anybody this way until he saw my daughter Yusra and my daughter Razan show up on the scene with the hijab, and he could tell they're Muslim, because before that, he never did that with Dia, my son-in-law, because Dia looked like an average, tall, slim, athletic, white American boy. Nobody could tell Dia was a Muslim, because they never had an accent either. So once he began to see my daughters, he began to raise the heat, and he told Yusra, my late Yusra, that he hated her and how she dressed and how she appeared. And though the 3 of them were drop-dead, gorgeous children, very well-known philanthropists and charity workers in the region, he saw them as just Muslims, and he zoned in on them, planning to kill them. And he carried out his threats in a very premeditated and cold-blooded fashion.
We're going to play part 2 of this conversation tomorrow. We're going to continue the conversation after the show. I want to thank Dr. Mohammed Abu Saha, father of Ghassan and Yusra, Mohammed Abu Saha, who were shot dead last year. And I want to thank our guests, Rami and Victoria, for joining us from Tulsa. This is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.